Hi, and welcome to another LinkedIn Live audio broadcasting across the globe. I'm not sure how many people are going to join us, but everybody who does is very welcome. The session today is all about how to give grit to the next generation, how to introduce them to that incredible skill, and how to get them to raise their game so they're there for the duration. Despite the hurdles and challenges and all the difficulties that come across, making sure your head is aimed with your eyes on the prize to guarantee to get you exactly what you want from life. That's the subject of today's live session. This is the broadcast. This is Speak on Stage. So here we are going live across the internet as always, which makes it very, very exciting indeed. For anybody who doesn't know what we're doing, it's our LinkedIn Live session. We normally do it on a Friday or we do it on a Sunday, depending on what I've been up to. And this week has been incredible. I've been in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and I've been a host at Leap, which is the world's biggest tech conference event, but actually the truth is it's the world's biggest event of any description. Hundreds of thousands of people applied to join and registered, and everywhere I went, I was surrounded by tons and tons of people from all different nationalities, all different just demographics that you wouldn't believe. But one of the things that was so amazingly stunning about the whole thing was just the experience of meeting so many people from different walks of life who are really high up on tech, who really knew what they were talking about. Now, some people will turn around and say, well, yeah, but it's all right if you're in that business. But here's the thing that really shocked me. Everybody is in the business. So when we started talking about AI, you had those who are making notes and those who are already involved in doing incredible things. Now, I'm joined on stage already by davecrane, my wife, and Debbie Gray is going to be joining us shortly and joining us on the big stage. And Debbie's in the UK, we're based in the UAE, so when I go to events like Leap in Saudi, it's only a small jump or a leap or a hop and skip to get to there. So it's not so bad at all. In fact, we're joined by lots of people now. I'm seeing some of our dearest friends who got Professor Christian Farioli, Jeff Price, goodness me, all of whom can join us on stage too, as we wait to see who else is going to join us too. So all you do is, guys, just apply to join us on the stage, and then you're very welcome to. Debbie, how's your week been? It feels like forever.
My week has been great, thank you, but I'm more curious about yours. It looked adventurous.
It was amazing, and I had a job to do. Here's the thing. I was there to host a stage that was all about, first 2 days were all about health tech, so all the advances in the health industry, and 30% of all the data on the planet is in the health industry. So that just basically shows the importance of tech involved in that. And then the second 2 days, I was involved in looking at the education world and how tech is involved in that. So it's pretty much hands on deck. So with a lot of people, they were all, meeting, having meetings afterwards and chatting and socializing. For me, I didn't even have a luxury because I wanted to make sure that I was in the game. Because here's the thing about it. I host a lot of tech events, but I'm not really a techie, as Aziza will tell you. I just have a very good overview about how to translate stuff that becomes really techie to people who don't know much about it. But things move so quickly that if you don't stay on top of at least the conversations, they move. And so one of the things that was incredible for me in this whole experience was I host the event, I bring on speakers, and I get the audience all excited, I make all the announcements, and I share my content, my knowledge, and tell people how they can work with us in the future. But mainly I'm there to represent the big events and obviously the stuff that goes on stage. But that also means jumping in wherever I'm needed. And one of the things that happened and came along, which was unexpected, was I was told, oh, Dave, there's a fireside chat, and we need you to fill in because the other speaker hasn't made it. I went, okay. Fireside chat usually means two people. There's no actual fire. It's just called a fireside chat. Two people having an interview stroke, negotiation stroke, expose stroke. There's no stroking, but general conversation is a bit like that. About brain surgery. And the gentleman I was on stage with was a guy still called that, Dr. Thomas Oxley, who's one of the world's foremost experts on brain surgery, not just doing things to the brain, but actually putting electrodes into the brain to stimulate the parts of the body that don't work anymore through the brain. So that means that when you put the right electrodes in, you're also able to work artificial limbs for people who are amputees and all the rest of it. So I'm on stage talking to this gentleman all about how his industry works and what he's up to and everything. And it was a fascinating experience, not just from the point of view of being an ex-BBC journalist, getting a chance to chat and think about all the stuff that goes into it, but also the opportunity to chat about so many things that were really exciting about his industry. And that was one of many conversations that happened on stage. But that was my probably the thing I remember most about it. When I get access to the video, I'll share it online as a broadcast. But that was kind of cool. Just a quick one to Jeff and Christian. If you want to basically join us on stage, I think you have to indicate that by putting your hand up. I'd love to have a chat with you on stage as well. And then you can join us. It's a bit quiet today. I guess that all of us really should be telling everybody, come and join us for the live session. I think everyone might be expecting us to have done it already on Friday, because we keep moving to the Friday and a Sunday anyway, but that's no excuse to stop doing it. So join us on stage. Then we'll take a moment of silence just to message everybody, say we're live, come and join us, come on, this is where we're playing, and so on, and then we can get everything up and running properly. So Debbie, that was my week. In between that, we had about an hour or so to get to the venue, because Saudi is an incredible country and they're growing it. I remember when I first arrived in Dubai, and Jeff will be able to add this as well. When we came to Dubai, there was big gaps between all the landmarks, and they filled all the landmarks with housing. So therefore, to go to Jebel Ali, or to go to Dubai, or go to Sharjah or Ajman, you'd have lots of sand in between. But now there's no gap. It's all just built up, and incredible resorts and incredible housing projects and schools and buildings and stuff. Saudi's at the stage where it's building all that from scratch. And so there is a gap to get to places, but I can imagine what it's going to be like in 20, 30 years. Even if I'm not around to enjoy it, it's going to be quite substantial. So there we go. Oh, by the way, as Aziz has just pointed out, happy Mother's Day to all mothers around the world. And that's not just the one celebrating in the UK, but celebrating anywhere. So Debbie, over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, being a mother, and happy Mother's Day to you too, Aziza, and all the mothers that will join us afterwards. Your week sounds fabulous. The tech with the brain, I mean, obviously being a hypnotherapist, you have an interest in the mind and how it functions. And I think anybody would be interested in anything along those lines. So that sounds fascinating. Well done.
Thank you. I mean, here's the thing. When I was chatting away to Thomas Oxley, you can find him and connect with him on LinkedIn, by the way. When I started talking about hypnosis and how the mind works, he was fascinated by that because he wasn't a hypnotist. So when I explained about the importance, I actually said to him a fact, which is, do you know the number one reason for success in an operation? Now, this guy has done something like 1,600 operations on the brain and various other parts. He's such a big star in the brain tech world that people were coming along and getting his autograph and getting selfies with him. And I hadn't really heard of him before. I hadn't heard of him at all until I arrived at the event. So when I started talking about how the mind works, I said to him, what's the number one thing that makes for a successful operation? He said, I'm not sure. What is it? And I said, it's whether the patient believes or not that they're going to get success out of the result, believing that the surgeon is going to do the right thing and make it easier for them. And he was like, oh, that makes sense. I said, well, have you considered using hypnosis with the stuff that you're doing on before your operations? He says, no, but I'd like to know more about it. So that's a conversation I'll be having with him about doing hypnosis with people long before they have the operations. So that's an interesting development, only coming because of what you just said there about my knowledge of hypnosis and how the mind works.
I mean, because that's the same as they've proven that those that have lost a limb, it takes them, I believe it's 21 days for their mind to actually register.
Sure.
That has happened. And then there's the whole transition that then follows thereafter.
It's called having a ghost limb, and the 21 days may be effective, but it still can continue where they think that the limb is still there because all the nerve endings still tell them it's there. And so, it's quite an interesting, fascinating experience. to talk around that subject with an expert who doesn't just talk about it. He's at the forefront of doing it. I mean, the guy has put out 120 different patents, all for the work that he's doing, which 50 have come through, and he's raised $140 million for investment into research that he's doing. But one of the conversations I had with him on stage was, when you're creating incredible new tech and you're getting people to volunteer because they're desperate to volunteer, the money can come from their insurance, or maybe they're rich enough to be able to spend it on themselves. But often the companies can go bust in the middle of doing all the work. There was one company in particular called Second Sight, I think it was, a Second Life, and he mentioned it as well. They were doing some incredible work to help blind people be able to see a pixelated version of the world around them. Still a bit like in the old days when we used to have matrix dot printers, where you could just see little blocks of things rather than the full view. But it was definitely a step in the right direction until the company went bust. And they went bust because of a number of reasons, not least that the FDA, who basically look after the patents and the medical stuff with good reason before any tablets or drugs come out, they've got to give authority. But they have such rigorous tests that everyone has to go through, which doesn't actually bring in any revenue. They ran out of cash. So there were horrific cases of people who needed some work done on their equipment, and the company couldn't answer the phones because it didn't exist anymore. And so it does need funding, and it does need for people who are in the game to stay in the game. And that was kind of very scary to talk about, but I guess that's how progress happens. I'm sorry, you, Debbie. You've gone. Not to worry. If you just joined us, by the way, welcome to the session. We started a little bit slowly, but everyone seems to be coming out to play. And it's great to see Professor Christian Farioli, who's not joining us on stage, which always happens when he's eating his lunch. And Johanna's joined us as well. A massive, fantastic Roland and Ashwin. Now, when we just start a broadcast like this, it is being recorded, by the way, and I will be sharing it on YouTube later on. So your contributions are very welcome. Unfortunately, at the moment, you will be able to see my face in my studio, but you'll also be able to hear your voice when you contribute and ask questions and join us in the conversation too. I do sound a little bit tired. I've been talking non-stop for about 6 days in Saudi at LEAP, which is the world's biggest conference. So I will be looking forward to other people to coming on stage. Today's subject is not about me. It's not about LEAP. It's about how your grit helps the next generation. Now, last week we talked about grit being the one thing that allows you to be able to lift your game throughout your entire life and career. Because it's not about how good you are, how connected you are, how good looking you are, how rich you are. It's about whether you learn as you go and have laser focus on where you want to be. And that's a definitive factor called grit on whether somebody becomes successful or not in their career. And so today's session was really about how you can use your grit to pass it on to the next generation as a mentor, and how that's really important. But as always, we're catching up on everybody who's joined us. And if you have a question, by the way, raise your hand, come and join us on stage, and we'd love to hear what it is. As always, the sessions are only an hour long, so if possible, when you do put your hand up, don't witter on about your career and where you went and all the rest of it, and don't use it as an opportunity just to broadcast what you do for a living. Really contribute to the conversation, because the beauty of it is we're doing it on LinkedIn, so everybody who sees you and enjoys what you say will automatically connect with you anyway. So that's how it works. And so Jeff Price, join us on stage. I haven't talked to you for a little while. Jeff, how are you?
Hello, good morning. Hello, everyone. How are you doing, Dave? I can't believe you can even speak after the week you've had. That's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. It's commitment. Here's the thing about broadcasting, as you know very well, because we've worked together for the best part maybe 15 years on the radio, is it's about consistency. It's not just about what you do, because many people might miss it. It's about the fact that they know that you're going to come back and do it again. And so turning up every week, whether it's a Friday or a Sunday, is very important. But how are you doing? How's life for you?
Well, I have to admit, a bit like Christian, my mic was muted because I was stuffing my face.
Good for you.
Breakfast time. I'm being tested again, health-wise, which is a mega challenge. And just listening to what you were saying a minute ago about grit and stuff, I'm getting a call from another UAE PR exec. I've had to cancel their call. I'm struggling with walking, and I'm still having to use crutches. It's been close to 3 months now, and I'm going into hospital later in the month for a procedure to see what they can do, and then following that procedure, that will determine whether they have to refer me to a specialist unit. So I'm at the point now where I'm listening to your voice with your hypno stuff and reprogramming my brain to say, yes, you can. Yes, we can. Let's do this. Yesterday, I did venture out for a little walk because we had to get some extra school uniform for our son. And the first 100 meters were great. And then I really started to slow up and there was a lot of pain. But I just had to really slow down and take a breath and say, okay, listen to the advice that's been given to you, remember it, take a breather, and you'll get there. And I got to the finish line. So, over the last, it's been 8 years now, this journey's been a huge challenge, but I've learned so much from it. And I've kind of used it in my everyday business life too. So that's enough for me for now, but it's great to be with you. And I'm sorry I haven't been around the last couple of weeks, but I just haven't been really compos mentis with all of this. I'm not sure what's worse, Dave, the physical pain or the relief that they give you for the pain, because it knocks you out and makes you all kind of like warm and fuzzy, but also it tends to make you really sleepy and like you're not quite in the room. So I've deliberately stayed away from that stuff this morning just so I can be with you today.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. It's always an honor to have you join us on the stage and share your wisdom and your knowledge and the experience that most people have no idea, including myself, of what you go through on a regular basis. One thing I will say, and I'll say it here, but I mean, it's a really important link, is having just connected to one of the world's foremost brain experts, I'm going to start a conversation with him about my mate, Jeff Price. I'll get you introduced. I don't know what that's
brilliant.
What that can do. If anything else, it will give you an insight into what's going on, but maybe it will lead to something more strong. No promises, Jeff, but it's the very least I can do from the conversations and experiences. If there's anything good that comes from it, that's something I hope that can happen.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate that more than you know. Thank you.
No, I get it, and I feel it in your voice and everything else as well. And stick with us, Jeff, as always, and jump in whenever you've got something to contribute as well, because we always want to hear that. Talking about contributions. Go on.
I just wanted to ask one real quick question, Dave. Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned when we landed in Dubai and the sand pit and the acres of sand between developments. And back in those days, Saudi was very much like that. How is it looking now?
I only get to see the bit between the airport and the venue. And right. We pass sometimes, because there's people staying in different hotels, speakers and contributors and moderators. And so we get various drop-off points. When we go into the actual heart of Riyadh, it's absolutely incredible. Streets full of coffee shops, restaurants, every brand you could think of. It's just like Dubai. It's a really special looking place. But we don't get to see enough of it, and I tend to see it late at night when it's all lit up, which makes it look fantastic. But at the same time, I would like to have had some time to wander around and get a chance to get a real feel of it. But in between that, there's, as I mentioned before, there's just lots and lots of desert. But you can also see from experience of knowledge. I mean, you and I spent, best part of 30 years ago, we arrived in Dubai. And when we arrived in Dubai, there was very little. I mean, Dubai's been going, the UAE's been going as a country now for over 50 years. We arrived 20 years into that. And so, for instance, what is seen by Dubai, and we talk about it a lot, is Sheikh Zayed Road. And that goes almost all the way up to Abu Dhabi now with things built on it. In the old days, it wasn't even built up from the World Trade Center to Jebel Ali. As soon as you started driving down that distance, which is what? I mean, you'll know better than me. How many kilometers is that? Or miles, Jeff, to Jebel Ali? Should we say 15? 20, something like that, maybe. It's about 20 minutes drive. You get to there and there's sand.
30,
So you're right. Sorry, go on.
35 kilometers, Dave.
There you go. You can tell how often I go. So 35 kilometers, and you basically would arrive at a tiny little village. Jebel Ali is a massive place now with lots of infrastructure and lots of people living there. And I've no doubt that Saudi is building it so everybody will come and bring their families and start contributing to the experiment of what's going to be just. And one of the things that's so astonishing, it's the same in Africa as well, we have a huge interest in doing business in the future, is most of the population, 70% of the population in Saudi is under 30. So you can imagine what that's going to look like in a couple of years when we start building their families and building their businesses. It's a really interesting place to keep an eye on. So yeah, I feel that I'm blessed to get in there at a relatively early stage. A bit like in Dubai when we first arrived. It very much feels like that with the energy. And it's a case of watch this space or don't watch it because it's going to watch itself anyway. So that's kind of what it's like. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Thank
Brilliant.
you, Brian. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Christian Farioli, hello to you. I don't know if you want to say something. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But when you do, it's always insightful. How are you, buddy? I have to unmute and put the pasta down.
There we are. Sorry, guys. I felt that when I got called my name from you, Dave, I felt that I need to say something. And by the way, indeed, I just finished eating. I cook spaghetti alla matriciana, which they were absolutely awesome. A little bit spicy with tomato, and so now I'm ready.
I don't even have to ask. I know that you live in between broadcasts and pasta. So catching in between is always a pleasure. Now, you weren't at Leap this time, but we've been sharing the stage on a number of different places. So we were both together at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Leap was right up your street, as techie could be. And a lot of the conversations that I had with people were so techie that only people like yourself would understand. Have you been following the broadcasts or any of the stuff that was going on there?
A little bit, but I mean, now in conference, even the conference like that, when I'm not have any speaking engagement, etc., I'm not participating much because I'm the guy that provide typically the what's going on and how the future is gonna look like. So as much as in the past it used to be nice to participate for me in exhibition like that, now it's basically I'm the guy explaining what's gonna happen.
Here's the thing that would blow you away, as it did with me. When you talk about futurists, and we've got many friends amongst us who are futurists, they're not futurists anymore. They're nowists. And I don't even know if that's a word. But everything that we used to talk about in Star Trek and Star Wars, and wouldn't be amazing if it had that, they had it there. I mean, literally from robots to artificial people walking around and smiling. Still weird, not fully smiling, but you had fully formed human beings that had robotics. They weren't really real people, but were able to walk around and smile and talk to you and interact. It was just stunning. It wasn't like we're waiting for 5-10 years or even 100 years. All this stuff's happening now, and every year it's going to get more and more simple and realistic. So yeah, I mean, I think that the futurism is exactly where we need to be. Anyway, getting back to the conversations, we've been talking about Leap for far too long. Let's talk about grit. Now, when we talked before about grit, and you and I have spoken at many times about the importance of sticking with what you do and how you do it. You and I had a recent broadcast. We were talking about the importance of being a thought leader and the importance of finding out who you are and keep going. Now, when we talk about something like the grit to keep going and the position of you as a futurist, how does that fall in? Because if the future keeps moving and it keeps catching up, how do you keep moving yourself forward to stay ahead of the game?
Right. For me, what changed a lot compared to many years ago is that before, if you want to be professional, you need to really kill yourself for 2 decades. And everyone were struggling to say, oh, it's going to take me 20 years to become a really good in whatever job you want. Now, the beauty of the current world situation is that people are changing direction, career, path so much and so many times and so often that actually, if you stick with your plan, simply 5 or 6 years, it's almost impossible that you're not going to succeed. But again, I'm not saying that I'm going to do the same job just 9 to 5 for 6 years and that's it. Let's say like dedicating myself to one topic continuously, and growing for 5 or 6 years is going to be almost impossible not to succeed, because everyone changes so much. And so after 5 6 years, then you are the one. So that's my point of view of any career, actually. Definitely. Then we spoke many times that you need a personal brand, because right now it's not about everyone can do your job. Now AI can do your job, and that's the major competitor that every job title is facing. So it's that's the main thing. So for me, with these two, then everyone, absolutely everyone can achieve whatever they like. And talking about myself, that's I remember when in my previous life I was in IT, and I always hate marketing. And I would say in my life I'm never gonna sit in an office and doing kind of a sales job, etc. Many years later, I became a salesperson, and I became a best salesperson. Then I became a digital marketer, not even a marketing person, but a professor teaching marketing to the largest organization. So if you stick with your idea, even if you hate it, even if you don't like it, you succeed. Now, clearly, I don't recommend anyone to do something if you hated it simply because you make money. Actually, I've not done it with the idea to make money. I just switched into marketing and digital marketing because I realized that my passion was to help organizations and entrepreneurs in using these things called technology to help increasing sales, which was something that was untouched back in the days. And that was my passion, my moving forward. That's what sparked me to continue.
That's very good. I
But
love it. And I've seen this.
I mean,
Go on.
my idea is that one. Let's say just stick for 5 or 6 years, no matter what. Clearly, you need to do your proper research. You need to properly decide inside yourself what would you like doing for the next 5 or 6 years straight.
Are
And
you
that's
cooking?
also that
Are you
it
cooking
help.
at the same, Christian? Are you
No,
cooking? All I can hear is cooking in the background.
no. And so it's something that I realized many years ago, and also thanks to your advice. That's with the hedgehog exercise and many other things, it really helped me understood to look down more inside myself about what I would have loved doing for the rest of my life. And that's it. And here we are, a few years later.
Thank you. That's very true, and I love the way that you're talking about. I'm sure you're cooking more pasta or something while you're talking to me, but you're not admitting it. But it's so important when you do all this to be able to know that you're leaving a legacy that can help other people. When you mentioned there, and I'll invite onto the stage Joanne and Almasra as well. Hope you're always invited, but only if your internet isn't as noisy as Christian's was there. But when you talk about creating something for the next generation, the biggest challenge is you're already trying to find your own stuff at the same time, and you want to leave breadcrumbs, but I think things are moving so quickly in every industry that what you're creating might not have any relevance for the next generation. Do you think that's true, Christian?
That's not an easy conversation. As I mean, I always think and try to brainstorm with friends about the future of our kids. What are they gonna do? What is the good advice that I can give them? I mean, 10 years from now, when they're gonna be like 18, 17 years old, that they're gonna start looking at possible career and stuff, the world is gonna be way different than now. So it's not easy. Obviously, even myself, even for this kind of extremely complex question, I ask GPT-4, and I get really amazing advice. Typically, when I'm walking the park to do my at least 6,000 steps daily, I'm chatting and conversing with GPT. If you have the app in your phone, it's amazing
Yes,
because you
it's
speak and you
fascinating.
get the reply. And I'm speaking like I'm speaking with a big visionaire. Okay, you need to know what to ask, you need to program a few things, etc. But for me, it's nice to chit chat on my path, on the career of myself, and even of my kids, with it to understand what's going to be more relevant. And again, the answer more or less are always the same. That extreme creativity is very tough to replicate. When I say extreme creativity, something like that depends on your big past history and your big experience. not just how to create a design or an idea or something like or brainstorm an idea. For that, GPT is way better than us. But when it's about using your history, your heritage, your culture to come out with something, this is something that GPT cannot say, because it doesn't have a culture, doesn't have a history.
It doesn't yet, Christian. It doesn't yet. But I'm going to jump in there because you and I could talk forever, but we're meant to leave it open for other people to join in. So Debbie, Christian's just talking about the use of ChatGPT to be able to drive your thoughts and have those conversations. What are your thoughts or feelings? Do you use it on a regular basis to be able to help you plan for what's coming up next?
I actually find that ChatGPT is great for being creative. So as somebody who does coaching, it's even great for scheduling. It can be used for pretty much anything in a modern day office. But what I was actually going to say when Christian just mentioned, and welcome to the stage, Christian and Jeff, I was going to say that he's so right. In 5-10 years, what is available to the generation now will have evolved so much that the next generation will be doing something completely different. Different.
That's true. And the stuff that we talk about is going to be so much more advanced. So just go, why would you talk about that's old? That's like a light switch. We've got lights that are automatic now. Why would you ever talk? Why would you wear glasses if your eyes have been enhanced? And everyone does all that stuff. So the next generation and the stuff that we talk about with grit, do you think that kids respect, I say kids, the next generation for me is millennials. Do you think that we leave a trail of breadcrumbs that people respect in the same way and they follow? Or do you think they just kind of bypass us and create their own thing?
I think we set the trend.
I love the idea of it. I don't know if it's true, though.
Yeah, I mean, they see the example in us, and then they either decide that they're going to be better than us, or they're going to use what examples we've set to then create something completely different.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the basics are there, and it's just a case that they grow on top of it. Let's throw it open to Joanne and Almasa. Would you like to join us on stage? Stick your hand up and join us and have a chat. As always, it's great to see you. We're quiet today. Maybe it's because we've changed the day a little bit, or maybe because I've been too busy to do the normal plugging of everybody and saying, come and join us, come and join us. But with that, we shall see. So we're going to allow Almasa on. Jeff, over to you. Go.
I think Jeff,
One thing I would say, Debbie, is that I think with technology, it's progressing so rapidly now, and our kids are so advanced when it comes to technology that we are kind of quite a few steps behind. If you take something just as simple as the abbreviations that kids use on platforms, and they have all kinds of ways of connecting now. It's a language that we just don't understand. And this thought about where we're going to be in 10 years and the technology. I mean, Dave and I often talk about radio, and we remember playing cassettes and vinyl and CDs and pressing lots of buttons, which now you can just do with a space bar. It's quite incredible. The technology, I mean, in our own family experience, just in the last 2 weeks, we've been called in, being asked for help because there are kids that are just kind of out of control. And I think you're right, Debbie, in that as the adults, as the ones who've had experience of life, we are there to set an example and we're there to steer the ship. But with technology being such a temptation now to everybody, it can be a real distraction, and it can steer that ship in many different directions. Does that make any sense?
That actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, what I can also add to that is when I was bringing up my kids, there was no technology in the house. I mean, it was probably prehistoric in terms of what they were being brought up compared to their friends. But my son is now at Caltech doing applied maths and is doing computer programming. something I would never have dreamed of. But he's had the grit and resilience to keep going along his drive of math, and that's where he's at now. I would never have seen that, not in one, and I don't even understand half the terminology he talks about, but he's passionate about it, he understands it, and he's evolving with it.
It's
That's
fascinating.
amazing.
Fascinating you talk about that, because one of the things that came up at Leap was the education world and how much it's kind of converging on itself at the moment. The amount of people are saying you should create your own version of what you want your education to be, and there's enough online places to be able to do it. And at the same time, fighting against the schools that are going, no, we know what we're doing. We've got a plan. Come and join us. It's really about finding what works for you. And it's talking about that technology change with the next generation. I mean, how many people think about their phone the same way as they did when we first saw a phone? I remember when they're about the size of a brick or a suitcase. And in the future, it's just going to be a chip that you're going to fit in, that you won't even bother. I mean, one of the things that we're talking about at Leap, and I'll just share it because it was quite fascinating, was about one particular organization that creates organs as 3D printed organs. And so one of the things that we did was, if you were waiting for, say, a liver transplant, they can create a piece of liver, artificial liver, that they can put on your arm that will do the job for a couple of weeks while a donor is found. So your old liver's doing whatever it does or doesn't do. You've got an extra piece added that your body's taking the liver stuff from, or kidney stuff from, and therefore it still thinks that you've got the kidney for another couple of weeks until something is found. So things are changing at such a rapid pace, even we can't keep on top of it.
That's exciting. Very
Isn't it?
exciting.
Amazing. So talking about grit of the next generation, which is our topic of the day, Joanne's joined us, a dream expert, and normally she's talking about her house, which her and her next generation are busy renovating or rescuing. I'm never sure which one it is. Joanne, how are you?
Oh, it's all done. That's all done. Paperwork is signed. Keys handed over. So I'm back to normality. I'm doing fantastic.
Good to hear it. So are you in Ireland at the moment, or are you traveling? What's the story?
I'm in my house having a cup of tea, having my morning cup of tea.
When you talk about what you do, which is all about well-being and very much about how your brain works and so on, do you find that the next generation is more open to it or less open to it, or that it doesn't seem like a shocker to bring up those conversations?
I love this conversation, and I think we need to talk about it more. I really believe that our children are wired very differently, right? And nature intended this on purpose because of the world that we're living into. The world is moving very, very fast, like exponentially fast, and it keeps getting faster, like even more exponentially faster with technology. And look, this is a big conversation. Technology is great, but we have to be respectful of it and all that kind of stuff, right? We know that. But I think our teenagers are very different growing up than how we grew up. We have been very, very conditioned, and by the way, happy Mother's Day today. It's Mother's Day today in Ireland.
It's International Women's Day a couple of days ago, and it's Mother's Day today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just full of it. Like, I'm just full up. I'm back from, I was in Dublin all day yesterday, and then the day before I was on a global summit, and I'm co-hosting next week at this global summit. But anyway, I'm just full up with this one. But talking about parenthood and mothers, I think so. We've been reared as a parent. We know how to be parent from when we were reared, right, from our mothers. I think that mothers, there's this transactional love. We talk about unconditional love with our children, right? But we've grown up teaching our children discipline, like, oh, if you clean your room, I'll give you some more ice cream. That's a transactional type of love. It's not unconditional, and we've all done it. And that's teaching our kids that if you do this, then I'll love you more, right? That's just the bottom line. And that's how we parent. But our children, I think now, especially the millennials, their minds are very different. They don't want to be held back by us. Their minds are moving very, very fast. They're very, very curious. They've grown up with the internet. They're on the internet now, and they're learning so much from the internet. I mean, my child is 13, and she's teaching me things that I'm just like, holy shit, like. So anyway, I'll just let you pop in there, Dave, and say something.
Well, throw a question at you then, which I'm open to the conversations that we're going to have with everybody on the stage. And Amasa's just joined us as well, so she'll join in this as well. Do you think that the next generation generation actually need our input, or are they getting all that they need from the internet? If so, if they can get their wisdom and their smarts from a group source of them helping each other, having their own language, if they can get ChatGPT to fill the gaps on what they need to do to plan to move forward, what do we do to make their lives more effective, apart from just put a roof over their heads until they're able to pay for it themselves? What's our contribution?
I think I'll say something very bizarre now here. I think we need to stay out of their way. And I know there's loads of people already going to be, what? I think we're holding them back to a certain extent. Now, they do still need us, right? We're their parents, we need to guide them. But I think we really need to make them feel, there's this whole self-esteem thing going on, right? The suicidal rates among teenagers and what have you. And I think we need to hold the ground for them in that respect, to let them know that they're loved and they're enough, and let them find a way. We need to let them find a way. That's what went wrong with us. We were told what to do. We were told to be a lawyer. We were told to study for nursing or whatever, right? We need to let them find a way. They can do it. And we need to let them make mistakes, because that's where we've heard the story about success. You have to fall down and to get back up again and get stronger at getting back up. I think we just need to have this space for our children and just love them. And, because there's this whole self-image problem going on at the moment. So that's what I feel.
But does that mean that our role changes from being a parent to being a friend or a big brother or sister? Because the traditional thing is a parent tells their kids what to do until they're able to do it themselves. But nowadays, they can get it from everywhere. And the difficulty for that, I'm asking you lots of questions, but I'm just throwing it. Where do we position ourselves in our own heads as to what our role should be with our kids?
It's not easy, and I don't think we're going to get totally right in this generation. I think this is something's going to evolve, but our parents have to stop and change. Now, look, this has been like this for generations, over thousands and thousands of years. And back when we were living in the caves, it served us, but our whole world is totally different now, and our pattern and our programming has to change to align with the world that we're living in. So it's not easy, it's very challenging, but yes, I think we need to be their friend. We are their parent. We have to guide them on the internet. I know there's loads of people that are going to start giving out to me, but I know that there's the internet, and you have to be careful. There's all this stuff with the internet and what have you, and yes, we have to. I have the programs there that, she's only allowed so many screen hour times. She only has access to a mobile phone in the house. She's not allowed to have one in the school, by the way. She's the only child in her classroom that doesn't. And I'm sticking to that, and she gets it, and she knows that. So there are boundaries. Like, there's definitely boundaries. But what I'm saying is we have to be their friend, because that's where if we give out to our children a lot and put so many rules, they'll be they won't want to know us. They won't want us to pick them up from school and all this kind of thing. And like, my daughter loves hanging out with me and with her friends and everything, and that's not something that a lot of parents don't have. But I think, yes, we need to be friends more than a parent, but still have those parent qualities. Absolutely. Like, we're there to guide them and mind them. That's our job. Absolutely. But it's changing in a big way than and it's hard to get around, because over generations this is how our mothers taught us, our grandmothers taught us. So it's a generational thing that the parent has to change significantly to allow children to find what it is that they love, because they're little geniuses. They really are.
They're better at it than we are. Debbie, I'm going to go to you, but I'm going to go to Aziza on this, because you've got daughters. Aziza and Maya are very close, and it's not just mother and daughter. It's almost like big sister and little sister. Many of the cases. What do you think?
Well, firstly, Joanne, great to speak to you, and happy Mother's Day to you too. I agree with some of what you say. However, I disagree with the fact that you should be friends more than parents, as I strongly believe. I don't know whether it's because I was brought up in an old-fashioned household, but I believe in boundaries. I've definitely evolved since my parents did their parenting stage. So I've moved with the times, and I think as parents, you evolve through each stage. And again, it's just my opinion. You evolve through each stage. When they're 0 to 5, you're there to teach, you're there to parent, you're there. And then as they get older, you're more of a supporter. But I always keep my boundaries in place. I've got 2 daughters and a son. And I can assure you, each one at some stage in their teenage years has tried to test me. Because it's where they kind of feel that well, you're not as hip as everybody else and you are their friend. The reality is I'm still their parent. I will still do things differently to them. I will support them. I'll motivate them. I'll encourage them. But I'm inclined to say that I don't let that line get too blur, as I always want to make sure that when they're in trouble, they know that they can lean on me and that I'm strong enough to be able to carry them through, if that makes sense.
It makes
As in guide them.
It definitely does. Aziza, did you want to contribute to this conversation?
Wow. Happy Mother's Day to all the ladies here. I I just want to say, when I go, okay, this, I hope that none of my school moms are listening to this, to be honest, but I've been stopped a couple of times where mums in schools are saying, how do you manage to get Maya to do this? How do you manage to stop Maya from doing that? How do you get Maya to do this? And I'm like, be a parent, you just say, this is my rule, this is my house, and you can do this or you cannot do this. If you don't like it, tough. You can do it. If you want to compare yourself with, oh, but other parents doing it, and I can go the same thing to you. I can tell you, okay, if you feel that's the way, other child are doing this, why aren't you? If you don't like being compared, don't compare me, because this is how I want to raise you to be the best in everything. There has to be boundaries, there has to be freedom, but there has to be mixing at appropriate time. What I also want to jump into what Joanne is saying, that I notice a lot of parents are so mollycoddling their children so much that they don't want their child to make any mistakes. And I feel that's wrong, because if they don't feel themselves pain, if they don't feel that, oh my God, I know that this is wrong, but I'm just going to try it and it hurts. And that's how grit, I think, will make them go, right, I shouldn't have done that. And yeah, I was silly of doing it. But if you protect them so much, they will never feel what the real world is, because to be honest, not everyone out there is a nice person. So I mean, that's just my opinion as a parent.
I agree with you completely, and I'm going to say something as well, which is we're talking about parents here, but I think it's not just about parents we're talking. We're really going to talk about the next generation. That's why I'm going to bring Almasa in to talk about it, because you help people in the fashion industry, and you've been an icon in Dubai for a very long time and a thought leader. But we're talking about the people who follow you aren't your own kids, but the next generation of fashionistas. Do you find that there's a lot of pushback, a lot of respect? And for those that you care about, how do you manage to tell them you're wrong, it's not going to work like that, without them spitting out their dummy or walking away or trying to confront you in public?
So, hi, Dave. Thank you for bringing me in, and very happy to be part of it. I don't have kids. I never had kids, but I tutor kids. And it's all about, first of all, you need to identify and unleash the talent of the people, any individual, and you need to guide the kids in their exposure to the world. But you should never be overprotected, for sure. It's obvious that now with the new generation, the mindset is completely different, because as everybody mentioned, they have a techie mind instantly. I've started working with typing machines and wired phone, and everything I've been learning about tech and all this new technology, all this new internet use has been by myself. Regarding that, you need to be really aware to guide the kids not to fall into the trap of the wrong information or be misled, because you see, that's the big, massive problem with the technology. You gain so many different datas online. You really need to have a mentor that guides you to select the right ones. And I think that's the role of parenting and adults within the children. But we need to learn to each other. They have that techie mind. We have the common sense and the logic of previous education. So we need to really find a meeting point where it's win-win situation for everyone. I do a lot of mentoring mainly for girls. Fashion is one of my line, but my main line is, as a style influencer, is to help people to be aligned body and soul with their environment, meaning that, I help people to find their purpose in life, which is the most important. And I teach French to really, really young kids, like 2, 4, 6 years old. And it's really funny to see the difference of thinking and behaving and so on. And now the new generation doesn't go with the severe concept of education that I was obliged to follow from my parents, which was not giving way to any talents, not accepting any expression, because you were here to learn, not to speak, not to express yourself. So, and I was overprotected from the harsh things in the world, where whenever you face them, if you are not ready to accept them, I'm not sure that overprotecting is a good solution. Like, you need to be a shield, but you need to be a transparent shield, and the kids needs to see what's in the world, what's around them. They need to be protected and aware from the really harsh things that can lead, or can be collected from this technology. But at the same time, you need to let them be themselves, because this is the most important in life, to be yourself, to be bold, and to really do the things you want, which is about the grit. Grit is about expressing your talents with resilience and implementing it within the right environment and right people. That's the way I see it.
Three of you. I know Debbie wants to jump in on the back of that. Debbie, what did you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with El Massa on that as well. But then I also would say that it's so easy to fall into being overprotective. I mean, I've been guilty of it too. It really, but again, with what Joanne says, you have to allow them to fail, because through that failure is where they're going to grow. So yeah, I was just agreeing with what El Massa was saying. But being overprotective is a very easy thing to fall into.
Well, I agree with you. I'm going to jump in with Jeff in a moment, but before I do that, I want to say something that Aziza did that was amazing with Maya. Whenever Maya used to fall over and hurt herself, Aziza would start laughing, and she'd point and giggle. And Maya would just instantly start giggling as well, because even though it would hurt her, she just snapped from being, oh my goodness, I want sympathy, to pick myself up, let's get on with it. And that was amusing. And it was a really powerful way to make her tough, without humiliating her, just to get her to join in with it. So I think that's a really strong thing. And I learned that from Aziz. I didn't learn that from anybody else. So just want to give big ups to that. I know Jeff wanted to jump in on the back of that. Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. There's some fascinating input here today. It's awesome. A couple of things have come to mind, and as adults with our own flesh and blood, with our kids, for our future generation, we as the adults, as the parents, we have to maintain grit and resilience. We have to maintain our focus. But we also have to remember, and this is what I learned only just a few years ago from brain surgeons, that brain surgeons alone only know 3% of our brain and how it works. And that as a human being, our brains only really develop at the age of 24. Childhood ends at 24 years old.
For men.
That's
for women, it's earlier.
A little bit earlier, but not a lot. And I think that's something that as a parent we tend to, not even think of. The online world is not the real world. And there is a huge amount of temptation out there. I remember talking with Barry J. Cummings from Beat the Cyberbully, and we were talking about kids in the UAE spending 12 hours a day on Snapchat. And I was having a chat with a school just a couple of days ago. The majority of their work now is policing what's happening outside of the school grounds, out of hours, because it's kind of got out of control. And one thing I would say as well is, having lived in the UAE for so many years, to a great extent we are protected by this cushion, this bubble, this cotton wool, with a great deal of censorship. However, kids know how to bypass that. In other parts of the world where there is freedom, there is purely a lot more of a challenge. So I think the last thing I would say as an adult, as a professional, and as a dad, is that us adults also have to keep educating ourselves. We have to keep learning. I think it's probably got even harder. We have to learn so much more because our kids are 20 steps, 50 steps ahead. And that's kind of just what
exactly. You have to be part of, you have to know, you're so right, Jeff. You have to know what's going on in their life. You have to be aware of what they're watching. And I surprise Maya sometimes when I just say whatever, like I use the same terms as she does, and she goes, "How do you know that?" I say, "Well, you can't fool me because I know what's going on. I know what you guys are listening. I know what you're doing." So she said to me something really cool the other day. She said, "Mommy, I don't want you to come across as the angry mother sometimes that you are to my friends. I want you to remain the cool mom that all my friends see you as." And I'm like, hey, I know I did my job.
Wow, I don't get called a cool dad.
I love that. That is awesome. I think a little person said something almost similar to me just the other day, as a dad, not as a mum. That's brilliant.
I have a trick for all of you that has kids, boys. One way to relate with them at any age is start playing video game with them, which I know that not every dad loves video game, but in my case with Fortnite, I bond with my kids in a crazy, crazy way. And they talk about me with their friends, that I'm the cool dad playing Fortnite with them. And my kids are 8 and 9 years old. I'm a little bit grown up, but it does the trick with boys.
Well, that's a great idea. You're very lucky. I'm banned from using video games because I don't talk to the rest of my family when I've got it. So Aziz won't let me have a PlayStation. Zara, you've joined us on stage and be very polite. We've only got a short amount of time. Do you want to jump in and say something to contribute to our conversation there? You're on mute at the moment, my friend. Just need to unmute him, and the floor is yours, or the virtual floor is yours. It's bottom right hand of your phone or whatever device you're on. Give you a chance to speak in a moment. All right, well, if you can do, then do. If not, then we'll continue with this conversation. I want to steer it in the final part of today's session. We only do about an hour. Jeff touched on the subject of kids internationally, and I think that kids are more connected internationally. But do you think that makes a big difference when we talk about generations? Because typically generations are dealt by the culture of the parents, and so whatever you grew up with alters slightly, becomes a little bit cooler when the kids join in and so on. But kids are really connected to everybody around the world. So when you talk about the grit that you pass on and the knowledge you pass on and the way that parents do things, do you think their international links make it more challenging for them or more challenging for us to be a good parent, to help them to get grit and to continue their journey? I'm open this to anybody who wants to jump in first.
Dave, go ahead, Joanne.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I love that conversation. I think, again, we need to talk more about that one. I totally agree with it because, we can be in such a closed place. We can be conditioned by our society and our culture
our culture is a very, very big thing, and we need to break open from the culture and see what else exists beyond our culture, and to appreciate how other cultures do things, you know. And I just think it's a great learning thing for our children today. I'll just keep it short and just say that.
That's very true, and it's the international thing that helps a lot as well. Jeff, you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dave, that the international thing I think is the positive, and I think that the local culture of wherever that individual is can be a real challenge. Speaking from first-hand experience, where we are right now, there's a real closed mind. It's the average 1 mile down the road conversation, whereas our son and our daughter are having the global conversation. Where you are based physically and in that local connection, that can be really challenging, especially for a child that's lived that international experience. But I think having lived that experience, they are able to utilize it and stay connected globally, which is incredible. As an adult and as trying to see the future, it's our role to perhaps encourage that international connection and keep it growing, really nurture. That's what I'd say.
I like that, and I think you're right. I mean, I remember growing up, and I lived in Scotland when I was first growing up, and then I moved through to England. And kids that came from a different school might as well have been aliens for the way that we all treated each other. You're from a different school, therefore you're wrong, and blah, 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 blah. And it got very tribal. You start looking at international stuff, it's a crazy level of difference. But I'm hoping that the generation that's after us, because they're so connected, maybe even playing games with people from different countries and chatting sort of in the chat space that you've got, means that they've got a more open mind. And if anything, they've got a lot more in common by just being on that game with people from different cultures, different parts of the world, who also have a passion to be involved in Minecraft or Fortnite or whatever the game might be. Thoughts on that? Zara, are you going to put your mic on? Can we get you on before the end of the show? Try again to unmute yourself, and then we can find out what you wanted to say as part of our collective conversation and consciousness about grit and the next generation. Can you press the button to be able to do that? Give you another.
Can I just
go ahead.
Jump in before Zara talks? I was going to say, when you talk about culture, my understanding of culture is different from yours and Joanne's. Because when you talk about that, I'm thinking, oh, I'm Asian, and you're Western, and we're living in the Middle East. So that's 3 different cultures trying to raise a child in a totally different environment altogether. Whereas you're talking about, okay, if I'm on a different school, this is the culture here, and that's the culture there. It is so different than what you're trying to say the cultural wise and what I'm trying to say the cultural wise. For me, when we were raising Maya, I believe that we had a lot of conversations going, this is what I used to do and I didn't like it, so I'm going to break the cycle and think logically what's appropriate, how to guide our daughter. And I think we had, and we made it possible that we have an open conversation and not be judgmental about oh, you're Asian, or oh no, because this is the way I was raised and this is how it's going to be. And that's why I think communication between parents, I know it's not easy sometimes, is very important in how we raise the next generation.
I agree with you. I often think that Maya is like watching a game of tennis between us. When I'm saying my bit of what I think, you think what you think, you say it as well. And it's bouncing around. I'd love to, it'd be nice to be able to see subtitles about what she's thinking when she's making those internal decisions about me explaining what, and it's never aggressive, but it can be quite passionate about what I believe is right, you believe is right, what we see as being wrong, and what the best solution is. Because often the best solution is not what you had or I had, it's what Maya has at school, but just to guide her to continue to go down that particular route. It's really strange as a dynamic, because I'm a Brit and you're from Singapore, and we come from completely different cultures and backgrounds. Is there anybody else in the group? I know that Jeff's married to a lady from Philippines. And
there's a guy, Dave, there's a guy called Chris O'Shaughnessy who visits Dubai on quite a regular basis, and he gives talks about third culture kids, third culture families, and it is awesome. You can get it immediately, and I think any family living in another part of the world is taking on another culture, and I think those of us who've lived in the Middle East, in the UAE particularly, have really been blessed by the multiculture. But here's an interesting thing. In the UK, they're saying that multiculturalism isn't working, but it's not being policed. It's not being directed. It's not being, for want of a better word, controlled. There are 220 nationalities living in the UAE, and they're living in harmony. The first words that you say in a conversation, a typical Dubai conversation, is, "How are you? Where are you from?" It's considered racist now to ask where someone is from in the UK.
What?
I'll leave that there.
That's
Oh my God.
Here's a phrase I will throw in, Jeff, just to change the comment you made at the beginning, which is the interaction between people needs to be supported, not analyzed. So in Dubai, we certainly support those conversations because we collectively agree everyone's different. And you know from your own experience, and same as I have from my experience, most of the people I know, if they weren't already married before they came to the UAE, are dating somebody or in a long-term relationship with somebody, could be from any color, any nationality, any religion, because they bonded and got on. Not saying it will last forever, because nobody ever does unless it's a right fit, but it's certainly more of an open mind attitude towards it. I think what we're talking about in the UK, and I don't want to point fingers at the UK, but Brexit, please, maybe that there's not a support for foreign conversations to be had. It's do it our way or don't do it at all. Whereas what we are blessed with is, what have you got? What food comes with that? And what conversations can we make? What's your music like? And all the rest of it. And I think it's more of an open mind. Whether that affects the next generation, I don't know. But I hope that they end up being a lot more tolerant than our lot.
But Dave, is that not possibly because UAE is like a newer community as opposed to, say, the UK, where depending on what generation it was, different people were being brought in for different purposes, which is what makes it what it is today. So it's like history.
No, I don't agree. I agree for a little bit of it, but what the rule of this country, which I find is so amazing, and I really fully respect and I love it, is that everybody around the world is welcome to this country. That's what the rulers say. However, these are the rules, and this is what you need to follow. If you break it, get out. But other than that, come and live together. There's no discrimination. There's no nothing. Everybody live together, and we are a happy family. That's what I like about this country. Like it's so good.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think what we do here is they say, this is our country. We're going to make it as easy as possible for you to do business and raise a family. We're going to make it safe. All you have to do is make the money, and then you can afford to live here. We won't tolerate conversations that lead to any violence. And to be honest with you, it's one of the safest places on the planet. I can't even remember a time I saw any kind of violence between people. You can leave your mobile phone in a restaurant, go to the bathroom, come back, it's still there. And I think it's because they create a very controlled environment, so you can only get into the country once they've vetted you. But at the same time, it's a very different vibe that we do want you to meet. We do want you to get on with people, and we do want to have a celebration of all that. So when you have all the different nationalities and all their different religious times and celebrations of New Year, and like Ramadan's just about to begin in the UAE, all those things are admitted and supported, and maybe not loved by everybody, but at the very worst, they're tolerated by everybody. There's no outcry that you can't have that, because everybody knows that they want to have theirs when it's their turn. And so there is a very different vibe. And I think the governments have done an incredible job of making it a melting pot and standing back to let the people stir it up themselves. I think that's maybe one difference that makes a difference.
So adapting.
There's one other thing I would say, Dave, and that is comfort zone and struggle. In the UAE, all these nationalities are living together, but when you peel the layers away, they're all missing family and they're all missing friends and those people they grew up with. And there is a one thing that we have in common. If you're living in your home country, surrounded by people you know and that familiarity, there seems to be less of a challenge and that comfort zone. So that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the support structure. If you've got an extended family, and even if you've gone to school with certain people, and then you see them as adults with their own families, you could have a conversation in a supermarket with somebody you've known for 10 years, 15 years, where a little insight from them, because they've got 15 years of history of knowing the kind of person that you are, can be very supportive, which we don't kind of have here. You're lucky to have been here for 10 years, 15 years, and when you do, you tend to stick in your own zone. There's not so many common places that you bump into people. So I think it's a different world, but at the same time, we have the electronic connections that make it possible, just like we're doing here. You know, able to talk to people who we haven't seen for ages, but we still feel just as close. I know, Debbie, you want to say something with this as well. And then we'll kind of put it all to bed after that. I think we'll kind of, we'll go through everybody for their last thoughts on it, including Jeff, if you've got a few seconds. And then we'll say goodbye to everybody. Debbie.
I was literally going to agree with the fact that an expatriate, it sounds like Dubai is like the expatriate haven. Because in every community internationally, you have these expatriates that can create their own world and will come together with all these generations. But with what Jeff was saying about it seems, having been out of the UK for so many years myself, coming back, it's a different ballgame. There's a lot more rules. There's a lot more PC. There's a lot of things that it's a lot to put your head around, that you're not actually sure, as the older generation that left, what the legacy will be for the generation that's going through it now.
I can understand
if that isn't making any sense.
But I'm not sure of it yet. I'll have that wonderful experience to come when I go back. Jeff, do you want to have a last say on this?
No, we're not.
Visiting, going back to visit Aziza, wind your neck down on this one. We're just going back for a holiday at some point. We're not going back to live. Jeff, do you want to put some thoughts in on this? You went back fully. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, I wouldn't. That's an interesting word, fully, because my heart is still there, very much, and I miss it tremendously every day. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the hello, where are you from? And I miss the how are you? Don't have those conversations here. We initiate those conversations as international people of the world, and we have Dubai and the UAE to thank for that. And I think there's an awful lot more to do, and I think we need to have that grit. We need to have that resilience, and we need to maintain our focus too.
I love that. That's very true. And your heart is always here with us, Jeff. You know that. That's why I poked you in a manner of speaking to say, come and join us on the broadcast, because we think about you a lot as well. We love you very much.
He gave me a ginormous kick up the backside. He really did.
Good. I'll see you on the next one for more of another kick. Joanne, would you like to join in with that conversation? Something you wanted to add as well?
I just, are we wrapping up now? Are we?
We're wrapping it up. So kind of last thoughts on everything.
I just love everything that Jeff contributed, and you know how he sacrificed this morning, not taking his pills this morning to be here. So I'm just really grateful for that, Jeff, and thinking of you and wishing you well. I think in terms of the parenting thing, think of the parenting role as being a mentor or a leader as opposed to parenting. And I think when we have too much power over whatever role it is that we're playing, children or whoever it is will tend to back away or have resistance when they feel that somebody has power over them. So this is where I'm coming from, at being a friend to them, but we can still be a mentor and hold those boundaries, still have the rules in place. It's a bit of a balance, really, isn't it? But I think it's really important for our children to feel safe, that they can come to you and have a conversation and be self-expressive. So yeah, and I just love the whole conversation today, Dave. Thank you, and thank you to everyone that contributed. I just love when people have different perspectives. It's an eye-opener. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Aziza, do you want to say your last few words on it?
I think today's session was very amazing. I hope to see you guys again next week.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, there's a
Oh,
bad.
no.
Are you okay there?
All good.
Okay, Jeff. Well, I hope you managed to sort that out, and we'll talk to you.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, love you, man. Love you. And Debbie, final words on today before I put the whole thing to bed.
Was just going to add the same thing that Joanne had said. Jeff, great that you joined us this morning. Sorry to hear about your ordeal and wishing you all the best moving forward. Jeff is trying to get back on, I think.
Yeah, I've invited him now.
And then, I agree with what Joanne said. But you know what? At the end of the day, nobody knows whether they have done great at being a parent. They're just doing the best that they can. And that's the reality of it. So my last word is everybody is facing some form of challenge. Be kinder this week. You just don't know what they are facing.
100% with that. Almasa, you disappeared slightly, but you're back again. We're just sort of summing up the whole session. What are your thoughts on it? If you'd like to have a closing thought to share.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had an internet problem, so I was disconnected. But no, what I want to say is that it's all about culture. I mean, culture is really the backbone and needs to be totally instilled into the children's and into the environment. And why UAE is so successful, it's because it's a bundle of culture that totally respect the culture, respect the individuals, and put them to grow with a spirit of competition that is very healthy. And if you look, they like any supermarket for the kind of foods you can find in your country. So, okay, people are unrooted, but they recreate their own environment and they mix the culture with the other. That is the best way to grow nations. Blending is the best of raising breeds and making things progress. So this is the thought I would say.
I remember when I grew up, there's a song by a group called Blue Mink called Melting Pot, which is worth trying to find on YouTube. I'll drop it into the comments section. And it went along the lines of this for the chorus. All we need is a great big melting pot, big enough to put the world and all it's got. Keep it stirring for 100 years or more, and we'll make chocolate-coloured people by the score. And it was just really about bringing everybody together. And it's just a beautiful sentiment. Even going back, this is like going back 50 years ago. That's how old I am. But it's just a beautiful thought. Anyway, with that being said, thanks to everybody for their contribution today. I hope it's been as rewarding for you as it has been for me to be on this broadcast. As always, thanks to Almasa and Joanne and Debbie and to Christian and to Jeff. And Aziza, and if we missed out anybody, I know Zara was trying to jump on stage, but not to worry. And hopefully by then you'll have your broadcast working out on your internet, so you can join us on stage to share your contributions too. We should be back this time next Sunday. Feel free to spread the word. We'll be sharing a recording later on in the day of today's broadcast. I'd love you to share that with people and let me know what they're missing on the contribution. But meanwhile, don't be a stranger. And also remember, it doesn't matter what the situation is about you being miles away from everybody. You're still connected here. And as we grow with this broadcast and we meet once a week, it's turning into family. And I want you to feel like that as well. Feel free to reach out to myself and anybody here, because when we can do, we'll be here for you as well. Meanwhile, on behalf of today's broadcast, I want to thank you for your participation and have an amazing week ahead. And I'll catch up with you very soon. Remember, whatever's challenging you, here's your challenge from me. Jump and grow wings on the way down. This is Speak on Stage.